Well, TV fans, she has brought the classic character Lyra Silvertongue expertly to life in HBO and BBC One's adaptation of his Dark Materials. I'm Sam Ekman of Gold Derby, and I'm excited to be joined by Dafne Keen. Dafne, these books have been, really beloved, and they've stood the test of time and endured. I'm curious, did you read the books at all and sort of grab from those from inspiration, or did you want that to be a separate thing from your own character?
No, I'm a massive fan of the books. So I hadn't read them before I started doing it, but then once I started filming, I really got into the books. I read the 3 of them in like 2 weeks, literally like back to back in between takes. So I definitely did take from it a lot, because I think that if you're doing a character from a book, as much as you want to separate the book from the actual show or the film or whatever it is you're doing, you can't, because the character has been created in a book. So for me, it really helped me knowing where Lyra begins and where Lyra ends, so I can time the character's arc, and so that I can, get to know the character better, because in Philip Pullman's amazing novels, obviously you have much more time to investigate the inner life of the characters than you do in a TV show. Because obviously it's 3 books and stuff, and obviously there were things that he got to rush through that we didn't, and there are things that we rushed through that he also rushed through, and there's a different pace to books and shows. So I think there were some details about Lyra that you didn't see in the books. Obviously, there are some details of Lyra in the books that you obviously wouldn't see in the show if I wouldn't have read the books before and had put it into the character, because it's not a specific scene you put. It's a way of acting, a way of walking, a way of talking, So I did definitely read the books.
Yeah, and it's nice in an adaptation to have we have 8 episodes in the season to sort of explore the story with a lot of time. And I'm wondering kind of what did, Jack Thorne wrote the episodes. Did he talk to you at all about what kind of world he was setting up with his adaptation and what sort of tone was being set?
Well, season 2 wise, yeah. Season 1 wise, but not really, because I was cast not really late, but not like a year before or something. So I feel like Ruth had much more contact with Jack Thorne on the first season than I did. I came into the show and I met with Jack and Jane and Ruth and stuff in the audition room in another meeting, and then we had a few rehearsals and stuff. And I obviously did talk to Jack about things, and we had meetings about scripts, but I've definitely talked a lot with him about scripts, but we've gotten much closer, and we've talked a lot more about stuff from season 2.
When you did read the scripts in the book, what grabbed you about Lyra? What was it about her, if anything, that you connected with?
That I connected with. I just love the fact that it's a young female lead, which is, I know, like, that alone sounds like basically what anyone would say, but I love the fact that Lyra, I think the most special thing about Lyra is that she is I always say this in every single interview I do, but she is a character that is a young woman with no sort of sexual power whatsoever, which takes out the entire sexist factor, because she is literally just relying on who she is, her determination, her strength. She is not relying on any sort of sensual manipulation or sexual energy. She's not relying on any of that, which I think is really big for women now in 2020, for example, because we are, even if there's all of this Me Too and Time's Up and all of these anti-sexism movements, we still live in a very sexist world. And I think it would have helped me a lot when I was little to see a girl who is genuinely just a force of nature without any sort of sexual connotation, which I think is very important. So that was definitely what first drew me in, and then obviously the amazing world that Philip Pullman wrote.
Right. And in that world, one of the things that makes it fantastical and different from our own is that everyone has a demon, which is kind of like the embodiment of your soul, an extension of yourself. And Lyra's is Pan. And I'm wondering, how did you work in scenes where there's kind of not that scene partner there? How did you go about, you have so many scenes where it's just you and your animal demon.
Well, we had puppeteers, so we had little puppets, and I had sometimes the actor who plays Archie on set. So I would hear sometimes his voice and stuff, but we always had a puppet, and we did a puppet pass, and then you memorize what the puppet did, and then once you repeated it, you would have to remember what the puppet did, and you'd act it out again, which was fun. But it was also like it meant more takes, so it was quite hard. It was hard at the beginning. It was quite hard at the beginning because obviously, like, when you're doing a scene, for example, for you and me right now, I'd have to be focused on Pan and on your demon, so it makes 4 people instead of 2 in a scene. It's always like twice as many people, and if you're talking with someone, you have to look at the demon. It's just very confusing.
Because Pan is kind of like an extension or a piece of Lyra, did you kind of consider his actions and dialogue when thinking about your own character, or is there a separation there?
No, definitely on set, at least I got on really well with the puppeteers because obviously I did a lot of scenes on my own, so I obviously got really close with them, and we got to this point of sort of understanding between the puppeteers and the actors, where I'd be in a scene and I'd be like, oh, what do you think about doing this with Pan? And they'd be like, oh, what do you think about doing this so that you have this to do with Pan? And we'd always have chats about what's Pan doing in the scene, what's, you know, like what's going on demon-wise. So nothing that you see on camera is random. Like, it was all thought really carefully through by Russell Dodgson and all the puppeteers and me and Ruth and all of the actors and the directors and stuff. So there is nothing random about demon movement at all.
Does that also apply to like Yorick and the polar bears? Because I kept thinking like, well, does she have a puppeteer or an image there, or does she literally have to act and emote just surrounded by nothing on set because they're digital creatures?
Well, I mean, there was like 50 million different versions of Yorick puppets. You know, obviously there's Joe Tanberg, who plays Yorick, who's like my favorite human being on earth. No, he's genuinely, like, he's hilarious. He's honestly, he's proper artwork himself. He's like one of the most talented people I know. He does the most amazing, like, you'll be filming with him and you don't even need the puppet. You just hear his voice. Like, the voice you hear in the actual show is basically, they did a tiny bit of tuning and stuff, but it is basically what Joe did on set. So what they did was they had this big, like, Joe would be dressed in all white, so it would like reflect on me. And he had this helmet with a GoPro on, which filmed his facial expressions so that then they could like VFX them onto Yorick. And he had weights on his feet because he wanted to tread heavier. This is how method Joe is. And then, so they do one take with Joe in the head, which was like a whole scaffolding, like really realistic head, like shape-wise. And then they pull the head out and they do Joe with a weird thing like that, which had 2 balls, which was supposed to be the eyes, and then another like tennis ball thing, which was supposed to be the nose, that was just the weirdest one. You just had like wires poking at you. And then it was so awkward. And then there was the third option, which was this Joe on his own, like being Joe. And then when they wanted a clean pose, it would just be me acting to literally thin air. There was this, I had to hug Yorick at one point, and it was just nothing. They couldn't, like, I did one take with Yorick, and then they were like, now remember. And I was like, I'm hugging a polar bear. This is so awkward.
That does sound very awkward. One of the interactions I love the most from you is just your scenes with Ruth Wilson as Mrs. Coulter are so great, because I feel like that character gets a little bit more time, more exploration into her backstory than the book gives at times. And I'm just curious, because they're both kind of trying to outsmart one another. They both have a tangled history together. What was it like working with Ruth? Because you have great chemistry together.
Well, I think firstly, I love all of the actors on the show, but Ruth and I, we get on really well, like especially, we get on really, really well. And me and Ruth just have a really good time on set because we just go crazy. Like, we're both pretty energetic people. And it's just like every time we film, we start off quite subtle. And then by the end of the day, we're like, I spat chamomile in her face. She like tackled me, like it goes really full on. But I think me and Ruth, I met Ruth at the audition, and literally the first thing she said to me, she shook my hand and she was like, Ruth Wilson. We have really similar eyebrows. Like that was literally my start of my relationship with Ruth. But we get on really, really well, and I just love acting with Ruth because of what I said, because of the levels it gets to. It gets completely crazy, and we just get really carried away. And Ruth's so amazing as an actress that it's just like breathing the same air as her. You're bound to learn. Like, she is amazing.
Yeah. She has, there's so much there that like challenges Lyra's trust. And I think that's kind of a theme that runs through the series, is this distrust of establishment, distrust of adults. You even have a moment where you wonder if, like, can I trust Ma Costa, who's supposed to be a guardian of mine? So what do you think? Is that fair to say that that's a theme running through? What does that do to Lyra?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the theme of the show, like you said, is trust and truth. And if you trust the truth, because obviously the alethiometer, for example, it says the truth, but it's maybe not the truth you're wanting to hear, meaning you're asking a question and it's asking you something else. So do you have to trust it? Even though it's the truth, like the entire Roger thing. He is like the alethiometer is technically telling the truth, but it's not telling it the truth that Lyra needs to hear. And Ruth-wise, I mean, Mrs. Coulter-wise, it is genuinely the entire search of Lyra during the entire show, I think, through the books and stuff, is looking for people to love her and for her to trust. And as much as she loves Ma Costa and the Egyptians, she doesn't really feel like she's one of them. And Mrs. Coulter kills people, and Asriel kills people in her only family, and the only person that she trusts, who is Roger, dies. And that's when Will comes in. So we don't know much about Will yet, but do we trust him?
We'll find out. One person she does seem to trust, though, is Lee Scoresby, who's played by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's obviously having a huge moment. What was it like sharing so many scenes with him?
No, I love, like, me and Lynn get on. We are both massive fans of musicals. Like, it's not very usual to find a 15-year-old girl who knows, like, Guys and Dolls and proper, like, classic musicals. So we would really enjoy our time on the balloon, constantly singing. I go over to his house when we're filming. Like, I go over to his house a lot. I know all of his kids. I know his kids. I get on really well with his wife. We go out to dinner together. We have a great time on set. We have a great laugh. We just get on really well. We're both Latino, so we both speak in Spanish on set. We listen to salsa together and stuff. We get on really, really well. We've got a really similar personality. We're really goofy and like energetic and stuff, which is fun. And he's really, really talented. Yeah.
I'm wondering because you seem to have such great insights about Lyra, which lends to a great performance, but do you see any of yourself in her at all? Are there things, or on the flip side, are there things that she has maybe taught you?
I think the thing that me and Lyra have in common is that we're both very determined, very active physically, like very energetic, very kinetic. I think I'm quite cheeky, but Lyra is a bit like more, I feel like, I don't know, she lies much more than me. I'm terrible at lying. I'm really, really bad at lying. Like, I genuinely, it's so bad. But yeah, I think we're both determined young girls who were very energetic, I'd say. We have that in common.
Yeah.
And Lyra has genuinely taught me a lot. I think the biggest thing that Lyra's taught me is that no matter who or what or just anything you are, even if you think you can't do it, like, there's no point in just saying no. There is no point in saying, no, I can't do it, because you already have the no. The universe is already telling you no. Your job is to see if the universe's no is correct or incorrect. So that's what I think Lyra taught me.
I think that's great. And I wanted to bring it back for a second to a different project, because I first saw you in Logan with Hugh Jackman, and I'm a huge comic book nerd, so I was very excited to see X-23 on screen. But I'm wondering, being part of a really massive project like that, was there anything that you took or learned from that experience of being part of a big movie that you brought with you to His Dark Materials?
Definitely. I mean, Hugh is one of the people who I've most learnt from in my entire career, because I filmed with him for like 4 months, and he's the nicest. Like, there is nothing. I always like ask myself, he probably has a flaw, but I've never seen Hugh with any flaws whatsoever or anything. But he is just, I learned so much from him. He's a talented actor, he's a talented singer, he's a talented dancer, he's a lovely person, he's intelligent. He's just everything you would want to wish from a human being. And I learned so much from him. For example, I'd say the biggest thing I learned from Logan is that Hugh being such a superstar, like, I expected that I'd film with him, and I'd been told by everyone that he was really nice, but I really didn't expect how nice he was. He's like the most humble person ever. And he did this thing where he bought these lottery tickets, and every Friday he'd pass them around saying, Lucky Friday, and he'd give them to like everyone on set. There was hundreds of people on set. He'd go one by one, and and I asked him once, Hugh, why do you do this? And he said, well, because I'm always in front of the camera, and I don't get to meet all of these people who work behind the camera, and this is a good way of showing them my gratitude for their work. And that it really hit me, like, wow. So I think I really took that with me, knowing that obviously when you're filming, you're not you're not the only thing that's going on, but there is so much work that as an actor you genuinely just don't see. You see the cameras, the director, sound, but you're not seeing the people who prep the set before you arrive while you're sleeping, or the people who clean the set when you're gone, or the people, just so many people who you don't get a chance to say hello to and say thank you to. And Hugh took out the time of his Fridays to do that. So
that's, I think, a great lesson, and very well said. So thank you so much, Dafne, for sitting down with me. It's a great series. I can't wait to see where season 2 brings us. And everyone who's out there watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep up to date with us throughout Emmy season. We have plenty more chats with contenders just like this one with Dafne. And thank you so much. It was great talking to you, Dafne.
No, thank you.